About an hour's flight south of the Philippine capital of Manila, the resort island of Boracay lies off the coast of the town of Caticlan. The Caticlan ferry port was much bigger and busier than the last time we were here over 20 years ago. As was the Boracay port. Our hotel was right on the beach, with a wonderful fountain pool, perfect for cooling off from the afternoon heat. We stayed in the Station 3 area of Boracay's famous White Beach, a quieter area where outrigger boats are moored offshore. The beach is as beautiful as we remembered it, and the water still crystal clear. The boats provide a magical foreground for Boracay's legendary sunsets. Station 2, about 1 kilometer to the north, is more commercialized. Water sports equipment rentals can be found here, as can rows and rows of souvenir shops, larger restaurants and hotels, and chain restaurants with all the associated crowds. All of this is new in the past 20 years. Station 2 also has the mall, Boracay's main commercial area. Opened in 2004, the mall has the only pharmacy and banks that we were able to find, though it was surprisingly green and visually appealing for a strip mall street setup. There is a decent variety of restaurant choices, though it's unclear how this guy fit in. The mall connects the beach to the main road, and 20 years ago, this road was barely paved. The side streets are full of multi-story apartment buildings, with even more being built. Station 1, another kilometer north, is more like the old Boracay that we remember. The beach is much wider here and less built up, and it never felt crowded. Some older establishments are even still around. No boat traffic is allowed in Station 1, so it's by far the best place in all of White Beach to go for a swim. The highlight of our time in Boracay was hiring an outrigger sailboat, or parao, for an evening cruise. These types of boats have been used in the Philippines for nearly 1,000 years, centuries before Europeans ever arrived on these shores. Aside from tourist outings, they are still used today for fishing and inter-island transport. After our few days in Boracay, we returned by ferry to Caticlan, hiring a van to travel east along the north coast of Panay Island. The fourth largest and sixth most populous of the over 7,000 Philippine Islands, Panay is still very rural and underdeveloped. Our trip was less than 100 miles, but still took nearly 4 hours on the bumpy and windy roads. But the views were spectacular. We stopped for lunch at a roadside carinderia, a word that comes from curry, partly because they usually serve saucy and stewy dishes. The food was simple, delicious, and under $2 per person. And soon we were back on the road to our final destination. The Alta Costa Beach Hotel in Roxas City, Capiz province, is a wonderful beachfront place owned and operated by Vic's cousins. The province of Capiz gives its name to the Capiz or Capiz oyster shell that's abundant in the region. The translucent layers were used for windows before glass became ubiquitous, and today it's used for a variety of ornaments. Capiz is also known as the seafood capital of the Philippines, with one of the richest fishing and aquaculture zones in the country. And we took full advantage of this during our stay. Unlike the powdery white sand beaches of Boracay, Bye Bye Beach is black and grainy, but still a popular tourist destination, largely for the seafood restaurants and views. The Alta Costa Hotel was a restaurant until 2013, when Super Typhoon Haiyan slammed into the island. One of the strongest storms ever recorded, with peak sustained winds of 195 miles per hour and gusts up to 235, tracking through the center of the country, Haiyan killed over 6,000 people and caused over $2 billion in damages. Many places were able to rebuild, but another typhoon in November of 2019, closely followed by the COVID-19 pandemic, were too much for some businesses to survive. Just outside of Roxas City, the town of Panay was the first Spanish settlement on the island. The name eventually extended to the whole island. Vic's cousin drove us to a farm in Panay where they grow and harvest nipa palm trees. As part of Hidlaw Panay's efforts to develop experiential tourism, we were the first foreign visitors to this farm. Leaves are lashed together by hand in multiple layers. Then stacked, loaded, and delivered for building the ubiquitous nipa thatched roofs. Nipa palms are the only palms that grow in the swampy mangrove biome, so farming them is muddy work. Sap is also collected. Then fermented to make liquor and vinegar. It can also be thickened to make a sweet syrup. The nipa fruit cluster is woody and a lot of work to open, but the husk is good fuel for burning. The meaty fruit is tasty on its own, but combined with the sap, it makes a nice porridge. The leaves are also woven into tiny baskets. Then filled with a mix of the thick syrup and rice. Once steamed, they make a delicious sticky rice dessert. While the farm isn't yet ready for prime time, we've included some relevant links in the video description if you're interested in following with their progress. Vic and her family also went on an evening river raft ride. They saw fish pens, an old-school commercial fishing rig, and got mani-pedis while watching the gorgeous sunset.